Okay, so let me start on this very, very exciting project, which really inspired me and Stefan and everybody who came to Iquique the first time. It was a stunning place, and the Dragon de Tarapaca, in this initial sketch, you can see really it was my first intuition, which is you see the mountains in the background, you see the horizon line, you see the building profiled against that skyline of the mountains, and then you see in the foreground a connection to the ocean. And that really is, you know, the mountains, the dunes, and the building right on that dramatic point of the world. So this is a very, very inspiring project. And of course, inspiring not only because of the landscape, but culturally inspiring with the desert, the Atacama Desert, with the native people, with the original settlers, with the saltpeter industry in the 19th century, and so on. So it's a really complex and an amazing city that we discovered. Next one, please. So that's really the first sketch of the museum. You can see it very intuitive. It's a movement that really mirrors the local conditions of this fantastic dune structure, and you can see it here really sort of in the dynamism, which it represents really as a gateway to Iquique, because it stands as a gateway. And here it is, a view really looking to the west. You can see that it has this kind of local color, and of course it is about color and light, and also about sound of Iquique, and about all the senses, taste and smell and character of Iquique as really a genius loci that has generated this building. So this is a very unique approach to this dramatic museum in this place. You can see it here in its sort of profile on this piece of land that is there. Now this is Iquique itself. You can see it from sort of from outer space, so to speak. And it's pretty close to that outer space because the telescopes of Chile, and my son is an astrophysicist who has used those telescopes, we could see the clarity of the skies. And you can see the clarity of Iquique in this dramatic landscape coming down towards the ocean. It really is a stunning and unique, really icon in the world. I don't think there is another place anywhere on this planet that has this drama. And also you can see here the trails in some way in which people from Atacama Desert reached this ocean. And that's a mystery in itself, which we cannot go into, but there is a mystery here as well. It's not only the clarity of this image of from outer space. Okay, so here we see the site. You can see the site. There are some, really at the entrance to Iquique, as you drive really from the south to reach the center of the historic city, you can see the stunning coast outlined, and you can see the site really is one of the first things you would give you the sense that you've arrived somewhere. You're not just in a indiscriminate land of development, but this is really the symbol of the city, because it is a symbol of the people, symbol of culture, symbol of participation. It's a place to be. And of course, not only for those who come from the outside, but for the citizens of Iquique and really of the world. So that's the site, a very complex little site. You know, it's linear, it has housing next to it, but it has a beautiful location between as you can see, the ocean and the dunes just to the right. Now that is a very dramatic picture of Iquique and the drama of the dunes. And I cannot go into the history of the dunes, but I think there are very few locations in this world where the dunes are part of an incredible city. There is a mystery to it because the dunes are a kind of ground, but in a different way, a ground that is shifting, a ground that I would say is the ground of our time. And at the same time, we have here, looking down towards the west, we can see the ocean with its foam. So you can see the drama, which is really almost a kind of a divine drama between the speckles of sand and the drops of water from the sea. And here we have a view looking northwest as you come along the highway, and you can see the sort of acceleration of the form itself. At the foreground, you will see later, it's our plaza, an entrance to the museum, but you can see a kind of accelerated cinematographic image that takes you into the center. And here is another sketch that I did, a sketch really that also has a lot to do with that colors of Atacama, colors of Iquique, colors of the connecting blues in the evening of the water and of the mountains, and the building standing as a lever, almost as a mediating sort of Archimedean point between all these complex factors of reality and of nature, and connecting people to this place. Now, these are some sketches from my notebook, so I don't think I can explain them to you in a sort of linear way because they are just ideas, but you can see that on the bottom, I thought of a melody that connects this landscape in a topography of music, really, that really evolves into the topography of space. And that was an original idea of this dragon, the tarapaca, a sort of sound, sense of sound. And in the next sketch, I developed the idea that really you have those forms, and you have on the right upper right sketch, you see those sort of sounds and also pauses that give you sort of a sense of breath, and I call them fermata, you know, sort of a pause that is elongated from the pianissimo to the piano and to the forte piano and so on. So I thought really that the silence and the sounds are not really symbolic only, they are real sounds of space, the real sounds of waves, the sounds of the echoing of the mountains, the sounds of the desert, the sounds of the sand in the dune. That's partly the idea of developing this project. It's not just obvious as a spatial structure, but it is also an acoustical structure. It's an instrument. And here is a working model that you can see. It is a complex form, but achieved by very economical and simple means. And you can see here the drama of the unfolding form as you see it from sort of the western side looking towards the city, towards the north. And again, we have here view looking towards the east. You can see that we are presented with a small site, but creating really a weight of the site to create a sense of place, a sense of arrival, which welcomes you to the city itself and to the mysteries of its history. That's the structure of the building. It's really made of sort of double walls. There are only really 8 walls that really constitute the entire form, but the walls each have a place and a position in the entire composition in terms of how light and space interact for the benefit of the public in a museum, of course. And that's the key. We are building a museum for archaeology, for history, and that has to really work as a functional entity. So here is the site plan. You can see our really sort of a piece of land, which is that sort of sliver around between the two highways, one to the north and one to the south. But you see right towards the front of the slide, which is really towards the east, the cemetery. So you have a green space, open space there. Of course, there are big housing blocks all around it, but we have sort of room to breathe, a kind of pause in the fermata. And on the other side, we have the beach. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful location. And here you can actually see the roof plan. You can see how we endeavor to occupy the site with different proportions and different heights, and really create a story that evolves for the pedestrian, for the person coming, who comes by bus, you know, on the right side, or who comes by car and parks the car. How that story is really a story of the building itself and the story of what the building will tell with its exhibits, which will certainly be very dramatic and beautiful in this place. So here is really the axis, the little red line. You can see it really starting really from the north. It's a kind of a ramping landscape which takes you to the plaza, and the plaza is of course also accessible from the south. You can come by bus. You can come from the lower level, the highway, into parking lot, into parking garage, and you can also see that zigzagging connection, which is a kind of a bridge that traverses through this museum to take you to the ocean. So we're connecting really the dunes, the mountain views, and the ocean itself in a physical way. There is a nexus here, which connects them north, south, east, west. So here is really the plan, the entry plan. As you enter from the plaza to the left or to the south, you enter the entrance to the museum, the information desk, and right over it we have a cafe, a mezzanine cafe that can of course spill out also to the outdoor plaza. And we have two significant exhibition spaces, Exhibition A and Exhibition B, and then also you see the bridge taking you to the waterfront. Here in this visualization, you can see that the museum follows the topography of the place. It is a series of levels that takes you down towards its lowest point. And you can see that from the entrance, there is a sense, from the sense of arrival to the sense of an adventure. And the adventure is spatial. It's an adventure also of sound and light that you will see in a short time. But you can sense the topographical drama that mirrors the drama of where you are. And I think that's something very special about this museum. Here you have now the lower plan. Just as you come into the entry level that you saw before and into the cafe, you can go down, and then we have education. We have, of course, elevators and stair cores, classrooms, and of course, a auditorium for presentations and for films and so on. And of course, we also have on the lower level with its stair, which you can see, and elevators, a large and flexible exhibition space. And here, still lower down, we have the administration. All the people are really support staff and working in the museum. And we have the highest really parking level here, where you come, and then still lower we have another parking level. So we are taking a full advantage of the verticality and the large difference in topography between the upper level and the lower level of our site. And I think you see this best in the drama of the section, where you can see from the entry level in pink with the lobby and the cafe and the mezzanine up there. Down below in yellow, you can see the classrooms and the education. You can see we are, of course, expanding the view, to, expanding the sections to allow for auditorium to have generous stage. And then below it, we have administration in orange. In gray, we have the parking, and in blue, really the exhibition levels as they cascade down towards the bottom. So yes, the drama of the section is a microcosm, I think, of the drama of the site itself, which surrounds you as you traverse the space of the museum. Now, this is really an exciting view because you're seeing the entry plaza and you're seeing the entrance to the museum, and you're seeing the dramatic walls that structure the museum, the simplicity of the form and the complexity of space at the same time. And really, you're surrounded by the beauty of Iquique all around, wherever you look. So that's an exciting place to hold events, to come in the evening, in the morning. And we see the museum really as a social institution. It's not really only just for the objects, it's really for people to meet each other, people to come to discuss, to wonder, to enjoy the treasures of history, which are going to be displayed in this museum. And it's really about people. And that's really the story ultimately. It's about people coming together. And it's a dramatic view. You're really looking towards the north. You're on the side of the ocean here, and you're seeing the bridge, which is a very important structure that traverses the museum from its entry really into the landscape. And I think we found this very important, that even though we have a highway here, as you can see, we are able to create a link, and a dramatic link across transportation routes to the beach itself. I think this will be, of course, another entrance for those entering from the side of the beach. This is a major entrance to the museum itself. And here we have another view really of the public plaza. And you can see the museum here from the side of the sand and looking towards the city itself, towards the beach. A dramatic form with strong shadows and strong sense of light as well. Here's a little bit about organization of the museum, which you saw a little bit earlier in the sections. The pink here in front really is the entry. You have the entry and the cafe. Then again in the yellow, just below it, we have education, which is really central, right at the entrance, and the auditorium. And then we have people working in the orange zone, the administration, and the base of the museum itself. Connected to the highways is parking, of course, easy to access because people get access from the cars almost directly into the museum. And of course, blue is really the majority, is really the space of the museum itself to be organized for exhibitions. So again, you saw this a little earlier, but you can see the route, the story of the building itself as it unfolds itself, and how one can traverse it in many, many different directions on this very unique site. And here is a little bit about the vertical circulation. We have two really cores. We have the core on the south and on the north, which really takes care of elevators and stairs, and it's very simple, really structured to organize very functionally and move people in a flexible way across the whole museum from the parking, from the streets, from the arteries for cars, and of course for pedestrian movement from streets and from the buses and public transport. This is really a view. Once you've entered from the plaza, you can see you're entering into the lobby. Just beyond it will be a store, a gift shop, elevators on your right. So it's a very welcoming entrance that begins really a kind of an adventure. It's not just a big box, although very simple structurally. It is an unfolding story that is told to you also in the walls of light, which I'll go into in a minute. But you can see a bit of the atmosphere. And here you can see the Mezzanine Cafe, just above the entrance, bustling with people and reading, books from the store and really having the access to the plaza visually. So a very exciting place that can extend into the plaza itself. And here we really have the first really museum space, a large space. We're not really showing any exhibits, but they will be really part of the atmosphere here. But you can see a large and flexible, interesting space as you slightly rise on a subtle ramped floor. And you see in the distance here the next exhibition space. And here, I think it's important that we are really controlling the light in subtle ways. We really have no really openings on those large planes of concrete, colored painted concrete. But we have slivers, which are very controlled. They're not just parallel lines, as you can notice, of letting the light in very, very special ways. And of course, Iquique has amazing light. The Atacama Desert has an amazing light. So we're taking advantage of this light to illuminate and really play those melodic chords that I showed a little bit in the sketch here. So there is a sort of story of light here. And then here we have the story of light coming through sort of spaces between the walls, so to speak, in section, that is sort of harmonizing with the light that is coming through the skylights. So it's a play of light in the vertical dimension and in the horizontal dimension through oblique openings, I should mention. Okay, we have here the next exhibition space, the large exhibition space, which you saw before as you enter it. You have the stair on the right going down, and you can see the drama of this interesting space, which is easy to install exhibits, very simple. You can see the light coming through those sliver oblique skylights that illuminates the place, and you can see still further another dramatic exhibition space. Yes, and this is really the culmination. This is the, I would call the pianoforte. You know, you went from the pianissimo, that breath of fermata, elongating the pause. Then you enter the second space, which was piano, piano. And now you're entering really the kind of culminating space where there's the strength of light. And it's really a dramatic space, 20 meters high. What you see here is our idea, which is to be developed, that we want to really see a kind of fata morgana. We want to reflect through these mechanisms of light that I showed. We want to reflect the landscape. We want to reflect the mountains. And it is possible that you will see through refraction and through reflection of light where you are, even though you're surrounded by the walls and exhibits of the museum. So there is a drama being played here. The drama that goes beyond just the human dimension. It's a drama of, I would call it the divinity of light and the divinity of this location. And I think that's what makes this museum so special, that it is really part of the story which it is telling. It is not just a container for archaeology and for history, but it is itself a participant of that story. And here we have the view really from the highway looking now towards the south, from the from the dramatic, I call it Fata Morgana space. And you can see the ocean just on the right. You glimpse really the mysteries of the museum. And here you can see, again, entering the city. A dramatic structure, which is, of course, protected acoustically and visually from the flow of cars, so that we take advantage of the location, but without allowing the car to dominate the atmosphere of the building. And of course, the building is inwardly, organically developed. And again, you're back in the plaza at the entry of the museum, this very spectacular location and very spectacular adventure that awaits you. And we are back, yes, to the beginning view towards the ocean, towards the west. You can imagine how this will look during a sunset or during a sunrise. That's part of the museum. It has to function at all times of the day and night. And I think many activities will be here also in the evening. Yeah, that is the story of the dragon, the Tarapacá. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, but the dragon, it is.
Dragón de Tarapacá.
Tarapacá. Beautiful. Thank you. Great,
a
great
beautiful
work.
project, Daniel. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Daniel, at this point, we would like to thank you for the wonderful presentation and sharing your latest design for the museum. And we would like to pose a couple of questions to you. The first one being, based on your experience designing emblematic projects worldwide, such as the Jewish Museum in Berlin, what is your feeling regarding the impact that the museum you are designing might have on the city of Iquique once the project is built?
Thank you. Well, luckily, I've had so much experience building museums in great cities around the world. I think this will have a great impact on Iquique. I think Iquique is sort of a hidden jewel in the world, but a museum that possesses the strength of its history and archaeology, which is amazing. I mean, the things I saw in a museum were amazing already, but a museum whose architecture is an attraction which is part of that story, I think will bring light, a new light onto Iquique. I think it will generate economic benefits which are really unforeseeable right now. And that has happened to many of our projects all around the world, that the museum has become really a center of the city. It's no longer just an addition to the city. It becomes really the image of the city. And I think in this case, Iquique will come out from its kind of hidden sort of beauty into the focus in this museum. And I think this museum will make the city what it has always been, a very successful city. It will feature it for its citizens, but just equally importantly, it will bring the world, not just from Santiago, but from, people now travel around the world. I know we are in a pandemic, but people will continue traveling around the world, and people will come to Iquique to enjoy, and this museum will be the invitation card. It will be the invitation card saying, come here, you will see something you've never seen before, and it's a wonder of the world. It's small, but it's really a piece of gold.
Thanks for your answer, Daniel. Daniel, you mentioned the word pandemic. And we have a follow-up question. Having experienced all the changes that have come about worldwide due to the COVID-19 pandemic, has your vision on how the museum was designed and in general your current work changed?
Well, let me say this. We will get over this pandemic. Society will continue to function. We are social beings. Human beings are not meant to be lonely. They are not meant to be alone. But one of the arts of design is to create flexible spaces. The museum has large and flexible spaces that can be used in many, many different ways. And I think if one was to say the building was already built, what do you do in the pandemic? There is so much space in this museum that you could really set people in different conditions depending on how you want to treat social interaction. So flexibility is very important in a museum. This one has it. And of course, I believe that the museum is a social space, but you can see that even during a pandemic, such a museum could be used very successfully.
Great, thanks. And one last question, Daniel. What do you feel is different with this museum in relation to the other projects of architecture which house archaeological and anthropological research? And what might be its contribution to future Chilean generations?
Well, most archaeological and even historical museums have been built in a colonial way. They were imposed by a colonial idea, and usually in colonial villas and colonial structures. This is not what this building is about. This is really about Iquique. It's about the freedom of the place and of its people. And it's built in a location that is part of that story. It's not just somebody, imposing the museum from the outside as a colonial gesture to educate the natives, but it comes from people themselves. And I think this sense of freedom that this building represents in this landscape is what makes this building a legacy for generations to come, because it doesn't only speaks about the old world, how did archaeology become collected and who collected it and who made it so, but it gives the sense of participation of young people, of people who are just now being born, to create their own sense of connection to this piece of land. And I think that's the uniqueness, that this land is connected to the story of these amazing things that people don't even know. Those mummies that I saw, for example, from the desert, from the Atacama, from this unique location. So I think this is really a very different approach to museum archaeology, because it comes from within, not from the outside.
Well, Daniel, at this point, we'd like to thank you for the presentation. The museum is a fantastic project, and we really look forward to this project being realized soon.
Well, thank you so much. Well, all I can tell you, Dan, that, I came to Chile, I was so inspired, not only by Iquique, but by the country, by the people that I met, people I spoke to. It's one of the best countries, I think, in the world. It's a hidden, again, I didn't know, I traveled widely around the world, but I'm looking forward to being able to meet, and I met fantastic people in Iquique, in Santiago, and I really hope that we can realize this project together, because of course, it's going to be realized equally by the people working on the project, the workers on the site who are going to be part of it, the people who are digging the foundations, the people who are working in the museum, the people who are part of that social fabric. And I think that to me is very important, to remember that this is a social institution. This is really about society. It's not just about the walls and about the light. It's about people coming together and creating a community that is democratic, open-minded, and future-oriented, and really free.
Okay, thank you. Gracias.
Bye-bye. Thank you.